Hey, it's Bill Free and Lisa Natoli. And today we just had this idea, or I had the idea. I invited Lisa to join us and be part of this idea of sharing why non-duality is important for A Course in Miracles student, why it was important for us for individually, and we came upon non-duality, the non-dual direct path, very differently and very separately. And I was first introduced to it maybe 10 years ago and followed Muji and also invited Lisa. You remember I invited you to join me and also another friend of ours in London where we met Muji, and I became very familiar with Advaita Vedanta and the non-dual teaching that Bill Thetford, one of the scribes of A Course in Miracles, actually said that A Course in Miracles is like the Western version or the Christian version of Advaita Vedanta. And I didn't understand what that meant for a long time. And when I heard Muji speaking about self-inquiry and the teachings of his teacher, Papaji, and then also Ramana Maharshi, I started getting interested in the self-inquiry and Advaita. And then about, I don't know, probably 6 years ago, I came upon Rupert Spira. You remember when I first found Rupert Spira?
Yep.
Well, Rupert came on my radar as an expanded version or another version of the non-dual teaching, Advaita Vedanta. And I had, for a long time, if you'll remember, I had this interest, this very, it's like an obsession with awareness and what awareness is. And it used to really bug you that I would bring this term up, that awareness is everything. Awareness is, and I remember teaching a Course in Miracles group in our Friday group, and I walked up to the whiteboard and I just wrote awareness on the whiteboard, and something came in that just said awareness is everything. Awareness is like the white space on this whiteboard that I wrote the word awareness on. And many of our Course in Miracles guys, it would just go right over their head. I didn't know how to communicate it at that time. And then I met Rupert. I went to many of his started going to his retreats in California and in New York City. And there was an event that took place while I was in New York City that changed everything for you. And I would like for you to just sort of share that with the Course in Miracles group here. And then I would like to kind of follow that with why non-duality is so important and how it can be helpful
Hmm.
for folks that are A Course in Miracles students, really rooted in A Course in Miracles as I used to be when I used to follow Ken Wapnick, and as you were for and still are for many, many years.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bill. Yeah, I just want to back up and say, for me, it was about resistance. So I've had A Course in Miracles since 1991, living in New York City. I was like 23 or 4 at the time, and super, super devoted to the Foundation for Inner Peace. That book, it just was like my absolute gratitude to the Foundation for Inner Peace for just all the years of their work since the 60s and the 70s and 80s and the 90s. So before even the non-duality piece came in for me, the Circle of Atonement Course in Miracles got put out, and I was like, get that book away from me. I don't want anything to do with anything else. I don't need another version of anything. I have the blue book. I have everything I need, but I was struggling. It's like I was super devoted. I went 10 years to an academy for A Course in Miracles. I was 100% like, here I am. I'll do anything to, reach this place of freedom and joy. And things were falling away, but I was still stuck. And I was very aware of that. I was very aware of constant vacillation between love and fear and joy and worry and shame and everything else. So you bought me a copy of the Circle of Atonement book. You bought 2 copies, and I was like, get that book away from me. I wouldn't even look at it. I was like, get it away. And Bill would keep coming into the room and read me another brilliant thing from the purple book, which I have all the copies, purple book, Foundation for Inner Peace. I love them all. And finally, after like a month, he read something out of the purple book. And that's when I said, oh, I haven't heard that. Let me see. And that's when I fell in love with the Circle of Atonement version. So I have it in me to resist things, is why I'm telling that story. And so with the non-duality teachers, you were traveling all over the place. And I was like, I don't want to hear about it. I don't need anything else. And I don't know. I actually interviewed Rupert, and I was like, oh, he's amazing. But I still was like, I don't know, not for me. Until I got sick, until I had these just terrible physical symptoms that after 5 years of trying everything, I couldn't heal them. I couldn't get out of the pain. And when you were on a Rupert retreat in Garrison, New York, you said, can you welcome it? Just, can you love it? And that came from Rupert Spira. And that was life-changing to me, because even though with the Course, I'm like, oh, I'm not trying to heal it. I'm not a body. I didn't know oneness. It was still Lisa, the body identity, and this experience that I wanted to have, but I wasn't having consistently. So on that day, it was October 2018, I burned all my journals. You and I went out to the backyard the next day. I burned years of journals. We have a video there's on Facebook. I was like, I'm going to start fresh new beginning. And I'm going to keep an open mind. And I started looking at Rupert Spira. I started looking at Jean Klein. I started looking at Francis Lucille. And they just state things in a different way, where I immediately connected with oneness. I just must have needed it that way. I must have needed just a different way without the Christian terminology and Holy Spirit and Christ and God. And now I'm back to the Course. I've never lost my love for A Course in Miracles. I read it every day. I read A Course in Miracles hours every day, in the morning and at night. So to me, the piece was just like, it's all saying the same thing. It's literally saying the same thing, but in just a different way of saying it. It's all leading to the awareness of love's presence. So I'm very grateful that I had the willingness to look, to buy the book, to just say, all right, let me look at my resistance here. I definitely knew I was fighting.
So would you say that that experience that came to you probably around 2018 from the investigation, the sort of the self-inquiry that you gave yourself based on that conversation while I was on retreat with Rupert, would you say that that was the God taking the last step experience where you had an awakening experience?
Yeah, I don't think I would call it that. I just understood in that moment. I mean, you and I were on the phone. I was at our house in Maine. You were at the Rupert retreat. I became aware that I was trying to get somewhere. I was trying to fix, heal, or change a body condition so that I could experience peace or joy or happiness. And when you ask me the question, I mean, yes, I guess I could say it's God taking the final step, but I wouldn't, I wasn't aware of it like in those terms, I guess, but I was more like, I'd already spent 5 years trying to heal the body. I tried to not heal the body. I did everything. I tried all sorts of weird stuff and all sorts of spiritual stuff. And 5 years went by of confusion and doubt and what am I doing wrong and how did I cause this and all the attack thoughts and in that moment you asked me the question, I'm like, I'm done with that. I am done with being the body and suffering and being a victim and acting like this thing has power over me. I'm going to love it now. I am loving, and I don't have to heal. The physical stuff, it can stay. I'm done trying to make it go away. And I made a decision to be happy with whatever remaining time I have left. I'm going to be happy. And the only thing I wanted was to know the self. That's all I've ever wanted since 1991 when I first found the course. To have a direct experience of myself as the eternal, changeless nature, as love's presence, to let those blocks be removed. So in that moment, I'm like, I am not spending one more day, let alone another year or 5 years, trying to heal the body. And I had thoughts like, oh, people are going to say, oh, she's an unhealed healer. People were already telling me that. They were already saying, well, you're sick. You're physically sick. You must be doing something wrong. And I totally bought into the story. And there was just this decision was like, no, I am not this body. I am whole. I am perfect. I am changeless. I am love. And after that, like that was the turning point. And then after that, with the help of those non-dual teachers, clarity, I began to be able to put words to the experience. I began to understand, like a big piece of the non-duality was the stand in the discomfort part from Rupert Spira. That was another life-changing piece for me because I would think, you know, when you're in pain or when you want to get out of it. You're like, and you know, for many spiritual people, it's like, oh, I feel bad, so I must be doing something wrong. The non-dual teachings is stay right there. Yeah. Stay right there in the discomfort. Don't move. Don't touch it. Don't tell a story. Stay right there. And as you stay there, you, without resisting, without fighting, awareness comes forth. It's like, that's what happens. Like all of a sudden, like when you're not trying to change the situation, you just relax. So now, of course, once I actually never left the Course in Miracles. I never like put it aside and then went to the non-dual teachings. I always had the Course. But once I had the non-dual teachers, it just brought me an entirely new clarity, an entirely new reference point. And now I go back to the Course and I see the whole thing is saying the same thing, but I couldn't get it. I needed something else to I don't know. I don't know what or why, but that's how it worked for me. And so that's why I express it publicly for anyone who is struggling with the Course in Miracles, because I love it. I can't say it enough. The Course in Miracles is the love of my life. It is. It's just changed my life. So I'm always with it. I'm always teaching it. It's just like by the book. I'm constantly saying that still, but I'm also saying if you're struggling, you may benefit from keeping an open mind and looking at some of the non-dual teachers.
Yeah, yeah. And are you familiar with, well, I know you are. You're familiar with the morning Facebook Lives that I've been doing for a year and a half now.
Yep.
And you have heard many of our students that are in our different programs talking about the lights coming on for them as a result of the non-dual translation of those workbook lessons.
Yep.
What would you say to someone that because we just put them online, we just added a member area so that those workbook lessons 365 plus now I've added the manual for teachers. We've made this program a free service to individuals that may want to read the Course in Miracles workbook lessons with a non-dual kind of a clarity, a non-dual paraphrasing of the Christian language to bring it maybe into a more direct experience. What would you say has been your experience in you've been in that on that call probably half a dozen or a dozen times. What would you say about that call for others?
Yeah, well, I've seen the emails that come in, and I you know, it's just you're amazing, Bill. Just what you're doing there, and at first I had resistance to even that too. Like you switching out all the words, I'm like, you can't do that. But again, like I was like, well, what do I know about anything? So I was like, for me, the main point was that I was always resisting, always fighting, thinking things should be a certain way. Nobody should touch the course. Nobody should switch out words. Nobody should change the Holy Spirit to another name and change salvation to another name and change, which you do. But when I saw the change that was in me, I see the letters that come in. I see the videos that we're on group calls and living in oneness, and people are just having a direct experience of oneness and knowing themselves as God's being, an infinite, eternal, changeless self.
Yeah.
And because your morning stuff is free, you've been doing it for a year. You never missed a day. Bill was getting up at, he gets up early, but it was at 7:30 every morning. He didn't miss a day. And half the time I was still sleeping. And so no one has anything to lose by just watching. Like that's how I feel about it. Like just watch it. Just check out some of them and see how you feel about it. And like one of the things, I get a lot of emails, and a lot of the emails that are coming in lately have to do with the changes that are happening in the culture right now, with a lot of young people now refusing to be put in a box. The gender naming, people don't want to be called he, she. They're like, I'm not a body. I'm not this body. And I don't want you to start boxing me in based on this body. I truly believe A Course in Miracles is going to have to be rewritten at some point. It's going to, the Christian terminology is going to, I don't know when that will happen or if it will happen, but that trips a lot of people up. The he and
The pronouns,
the pronouns, the duality,
genders. the
Yep.
male gender of God, the dualistic language. Now, it's all intentional, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I, like you, I love A Course in Miracles,
Yep.
but I love it even more as it sings to me the poetry of a direct experience.
Yep.
And this is available to each one of us as as we let go of the concepts
Hmm.
of A Course in Miracles and we step into the direct experience that it points to.
Yep.
And in my mind, it is essential to to um, to access the direct experience of what you are in God. When it says I am as God created me, you must let go of duality.
Hmm.
You must let go of the idea that you are separate, somehow separate from what God is, that you are separate from somehow from what Jesus is, from what the Holy Spirit is. You are pure presence. And in this idea of the non dual teaching, or the non dual paraphrase translation of A Course in Miracles, the only goal that one would have or should have is is there something that I'm missing that's keeping me from having the direct experience where I know the self? And in my mind, I didn't set out intentionally to retranslate anything or to change or fix anything. I sat down in front of a computer and I started just talking, and it just happened on its own. And as a result of that, dozens and dozens of people have been writing in and making statements that, oh my God, Bill, I'm starting to understand the Course in a whole different way, a more direct experience, and knowing the self not as a concept, but as the truth of I am.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, that's exciting. And so many people are thanking you for, bringing them to Rupert Spira, you know, just that's what I love. I love that it's just all available. It's all available for anyone who wants to look. Nobody has to do anything, right? You can do it and just check it out. That's how I feel about it. Like, no one has anything to lose. There's it's just amazing. And like, we were just on a call just earlier today with Living in Oneness, and somebody said, well, Rupert Spira doesn't use the word God. And I was like, he totally does. And, I picked up his book on the call and I was just flipping. I was just like, I'm going to flip through while we're on the call live with all these people. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to, where's the word God? And then I came upon it, and, Rupert talks about Jesus. Like, he knows these things, and he's able to express them in a way that brings in the immediacy of oneness.
Yeah.
So the non-dual teaching is more like talking about subject and object and bringing them together, and like the limitation of leaving oneness and coming down into a body identity self. And, it uses a totally different language, but, he talks here, he's talking about when the subject object thing disappears, it collapses itself into one. The object is divested of its limitations, and the single indivisible identity of the subject and object is revealed. This is what Jesus meant when he said, I and my Father are one.
Yes.
That is the essential reality of myself, the consciousness that shines in the mind of the knowledge I am, or the experience of being aware in the ultimate reality of the world, existence itself, are a single, indivisible, infinite reality. When the perceiving subject is realized to be an imaginary limitation on the true and only reality of infinite consciousness, The world as an apparent multiplicity and diversity of objects, separate and distinct from the subject, is realized to be equally illusory and shines as consciousness itself, God's infinite being. So it just brought me to a different language where I recognized I am God's infinite being. It
Yeah.
wasn't a concept anymore. It was like, oh my God, everything is one in consciousness, not as bodies, but as the eternal, changeless nature, which never born, never dies. And I am that, one with all. It was like, oh, I get it. Like it was just, so yeah, I think it's amazing that you've been doing this. You've been so consistent with it. I think it's amazing, the clarity you bring to the subject matter. I mean, you're totally changed over the years, and yeah, it's just it's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I just wanted to share Lisa's perspective with all of you, just to give you a reference. For me, it doesn't really matter whether this isn't about members and it's not about, more people. There are nearly 1,000 people that are signed up to go through the material right now, and so there's a big interest in it. And in my mind, just follow what Lisa was suggesting and try it for an experiment.
Yeah.
See if it resonates with you. If it doesn't, toss it out. If it does, it might assist you. It might speed you along your pathway to awakening to a direct experience right now. It might just cause you to see something from a different way so that you have the proof for yourself that you are as God created you. You are the changeless,
Yep.
eternal beingness of God in a bodysuit with your name on it.
Yep.
And thank you all for joining with us today on Facebook Live. It's been our joy and our honor to share this idea with you. And thank you, Lisa, for coming and sharing your direct experience with the non duality and the integration with the workbook lessons and the text of A Course in Miracles.
Thank you so much. I love you guys. Thank you for watching.
All right. Bye bye, everyone. Have an awesome day.